Good day everybody, David Lipschitz here, being David Channel, and interestingly I started with Noah and then with Lech Lecha, which is the second and third reading of the Torah during the year, and I thought that I could either wait till next year to get to Bereishit, Genesis, or do it now. So I've decided to do it now, and we'll see where it takes us and where we go. I hope you enjoy it, and please like and subscribe, please share, and feel free to ask questions, and you can ask them directly, you can private message me, you can ask them in an open channel, up to you. Thank you very much for watching. So the Torah, the Old Testament, starts with Bereishit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Now, the Kabbalah says that Bereishit means with 6. And so it's talking about the 6 days of creation, which could be the 6 billion years of creation. Remember, God doesn't have time. So the Kabbalists already knew about atoms and all sorts of things right at the beginning. So, or with the book of Adam, the book of Moses, and the book of Abraham, the book that God gave to those ancients and gives to us today. So Bereishit with 6. God created the world with 6 and God rested. And that's a big secret, that we should have a day off a week. Some people say it should be Saturday, some people say it should be Friday, some people say it should be Sunday. For me it's often Wednesday. I like to take Wednesdays off. Today's Wednesday. Do the things that that interest me from a private point of view as opposed to from a public point of view, although some of this private stuff is becoming public, as you can tell. And so we have that. Then the word Bereishit starts with a B. Let's just see if I can get there. Remember, I'm doing this live, so things aren't necessarily perfect, but we get this B. And so the Torah starts with a B, and the word is bet. And so the ending of the word is a tav. Let's just see if we can get a tav. Not like that. We want this one. Let's just take this out. Cell phones, cells, and we get this. It comes up as an A. I'm not quite sure why it comes up as an A. It should be a T. But let's just do that, see what happens. You see we get 2 T's. Interesting. So now this is 400 and this is 20. Sorry, this is 2. So now the thing about a B, people want to know, when did binary happen? Well, binary happened right at the beginning, because God was one, God is one, and God separated God's self into 2 and made a vessel for the rest to happen. God is light, and one of the things that we hear is that humans are created in the image of God, and that, from a Kabbalistic point of view, that image is not that we look like God. Obviously we don't look like God, but God is light, and we have a shield of light that surrounds us. So what happens is that this B, which is 2, becomes a 4. And so in the single word of bet, the 2 becoming 4 shows us the cell separating, and we saw that cell just now, and the cell separates in multiple cells, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and so on. So that's right at the beginning. Now, the next thing that happens, which is interesting, let's just go and take this out, take that out, take that out, is that we have these first 3 words. Bereishit bara Elohim. It seems like that the beginning created God, if you just look at those first 3 words. But now, God existed before the beginning. I mean, God existed at the beginning, the real beginning, the beginning of the eon, or the epoch. And so, my view of this is that the beginning created God, is that in humans' eyes, we created God God became visible for us. So when the Torah talks about the beginning creating God, it's not that God is creating God, or God's creating another God, but we are creating God. And it's Elohim. And my feeling as well is that the reason it's Elohim is because each of the 7 billion people on the planet, on this tiny planet, view God in a different way. And some people might be Jewish, and then if you look at or Christian or different religions, Muslim, Tibetan, whatever. And so each of these ways of life look at God in a certain way. But even amongst Judaism, we have 10, 20, maybe 30 different Judaisms, Reform, Orthodox, Conservative, etc. And then amongst Christians, we have Orthodox, and we have Protestant, and we have Catholic, and we have lots of others. And amongst Islam, we have Shiite and Sunni and others. So these different streams look at God in certain ways, but once you become au fait with God and you become more personal with God, then you have your own view of God. And so there's only one God, but from a human's point of view, we all have our view of God. God is compared to a sapphire, sapphire, and so the sapphire has many, many facets, many, many sides. Now the next thing that happens, the first 4 words, Bereishit bara Elohim et. Now the Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the Tav is the last letter, and so God created the alphabet. Now before Bereishit, before Genesis, God was doing something. God was saying, I am light, okay, and I'm going to separate myself, and that means there's going to be darkness. It's going to be darkness and light. We're going to see that in a second, or in a minute, in the next sentence. So God created the structure of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yud, Chaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samach, Ein, Fei, Tzadi, Kud, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Tav. And God created the alphabet. And God used the alphabet and the words with the alphabet and the archetypes of the alphabet, which we're going to look at, to create something. The first thing that God did is He separated God's self. When I use the word he or she doesn't describe God. Him, her doesn't describe God. God is infinite. God is eternal. God is divinity. God is God. So we're going to look at that later, because the he and the she are archetypes. There's no masculine and feminine in the Bible. There is in the story, but we're going to get there. Now the next thing that happens is, if you take this word and we do this, let's just see if I can get to the end here, and we say Bereishit bara Elohim et hashamayim, and I'm not sure why that's not translating, and then we'll get this one. Okay, let's just go here and do a return, and then we go here and we'll do Evet Aretz, and then we'll say, now if I take this out, then you can see here, let's take out this colon because it's confusing, you'll see that Bereishit bara Elohim et hashamayim, in the beginning God created the waters of the one side, the shamayim. Mayim over here is waters. Shamayim is translated as heaven. And you can see here at the bottom it says shamayim, coming up as heaven or firmament. Okay, and Bereishit bara Elohim, let's just take out this 2 etz, haaretz, and the aretz. So, and the aretz is something. Now, some people say that it's earth. God created the heaven and earth, but He didn't. God didn't create the heaven and earth, because the next piece of the puzzle is that, let's just see if I got it on over here, is va'aretz hayata tovu ovohu. So now it says over here in the next sentence that the earth was without form and void. Okay, so now if the earth was without form and void, it's not earth. Okay, it's something else, some substance, ether or planetary dust or stardust or something, but it's not earth, because at that stage it's something. Now, what you can say is, if et is the language, the alphabet, then in the beginning, or in a beginning, God created the language of the heavens, and God created the language of something, which isn't earth at this stage, but saying that's not heavens. So God created a language, if you like, for angels and God's self, and then God created a language for everything else that exists. The stuff, the language that we need to explain, like I'm trying to explain now what's going on, okay, but I can never get into the depth of God's language. I can only explain stuff in my language, in the way that I understand things. So God is creating these languages, and it's shortened. You can say, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and something that was formless and void, called Aretz, land. Aretz is earth, but Aretz is also land. And so you could say, well, if you look at a sentence with an and in it, then God created Shamayim, and in the beginning God created Aretz, and therefore we put it all together in a single sentence, because otherwise the book would be really, really big. It's already pretty big, but this allows us to concatenate to make things a little bit shorter. Now, you can see we have what I said before. Haaretz haya ta tohu uvohu. The earth was without form and void. And then it says, choshech al panei, v'choshech al panei tahom. So the darkness was on the face of the deep. So this, whatever was form and void, was that, remember I said an image of God, God is light. And what was the first thing that God did? God created a vessel. And so God created darkness. So there's now darkness and there's now light. And you can see this. It says, the stuff that wasn't God, in other words, wasn't light, because everything is God. Okay? But the other piece, without form and it's void and it's dark. And then it says, and Ruach Elohim, okay, here, Ruach Elohim. Ruach is energy or wind or power, translated in the modern Torah as spirit of God. And Christianity took the word spirit and said, that's Jesus. We're going to get to that later as well. And so this is merachefet, hovering, al panei hamayim. So it's hovering on the face of the waters, and the waters are the shamayim, the heavenly waters, and the aretz, which is the rest, the void, dark, without form, space. And obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but let's say obviously, the energy of God is everywhere. And now God says, let there be light. Now this implies over here that there was a language. And the language we heard about is here, et. The language was created over there. And the language was created before Bereishit. Kabbalah is about what was God doing before God said, Vayomer Elohim, Yehi Or Vayi Or. So, and this light is not the light of the sun and the stars. This is the light of wisdom. This is the light that happens right at the beginning. The light, God is light, God is wisdom. And we'll see later that in the garden there's the tree of life, or the tree of light, and then there's another tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, which in modern times has been translated as good and evil, but there's no evil. It's good and bad. And as you'll see in other parashas, I talk about bad. When I say something is bad, I say, okay, it's bad, and therefore I can make it good. I can change it. I can make a new car, or whatever it happens to be. I can make electric cars, because ICE, internal combustion engine cars, are hurting the environment. So here, Vayomer Elohim Yehi Or Vayi Or. And so, and God said, let there be light, and there was light, and that's the light of wisdom. And then the next thing that happens later on is when the other tree is created, and that tree is the tree of knowledge, and there's knowledge and wisdom. What wisdom is singular. Wisdom is God. Wisdom is that value system that says that there's only one thing, but knowledge of good and ra creates duality. And so we have all this duality going on in the world, and the booms and busts and so on, and this bipolar world where we have ups and downs and ins and outs and yin and yang. Okay, but now we get to this point of saying, let there be the light of wisdom on this first day, this first billion years of creation. I hope you've enjoyed that. There's going to be a lot more. Thank you very much.